Hi guys, it's Raymond, and today I'll be showing you how to code with Python. It's not something I've been doing recently, but it's something that I'd like to start. That way, you guys can get an understanding of what it's like being a programmer and a dope student overall. Alright, so one of the first thing that we'll need to do in order for us to start code with Python, we'll first need Python. Let's download. And what we'll do is we'll go on the website that pretty much advertise Python. And we're starting from scratch, so I'll take it that you don't know what it is to code with Python. And we can see here there's a number of versions that are released, that has been released. And it's presently the 23rd of September, so there's a version that is quite new. We'll just come up here and use the version that is most stable, which is the Python 3.10.7. We'll save that. If you can see, it's going to the folder that says Learn Python. It's been downloaded, so I'll go in there and let's get that installed. All of this, uh, all of this will be done real time, guys. So you can see more or less what it will be like for you to learn Python. So this is one of the first applications that we'll be downloading. After this, we'll be using Anaconda, and that is mainly for data science. And one of the reason I'm doing this is because I'm using this teaching experience to refine my data analysis skills as well. All right, so that's done. Let To ensure that it has been installed properly, let's open command prompt and let's just run Python. Yes, that did work out well. And so from here we can see that it's working quite fine. So this is the command line for Python, guys. We haven't installed Anaconda as yet, but it's a custom to create a hello world code after installing or when attempting to run your first code. So what we'll do is we'll create a variable in Python that is as easy as saying greeting, which would be the name of or variable. We'll say greeting equals a string, and because it's a string, we'll have that be in double quotations. It may also take single quotations as well. So let's go hello world, and how we'd pass this, we just hit enter, and it's now stored. The statement hello world is now stored in the variable greeting. So how do we access that? Well, that's simple as type in the word greeting. So you pretty much list the name that you've entered before, and there it is. We can see that it's displayed with the single quotes this time, and that is it. So let's get a bit more creative with it. Let's say we want to add a name behind that greeting. Well, Python allows you to concatenate strings with the plus sign. And when I say concatenate, I mean Python allows you to add strings together. So the word greeting is a variable. So what we do is we'll say new greeting. We'll say new new greeting equals greeting, which is the variable we created up top, and my name is Raymond. So to ensure that it gets done properly, we'll add the plus sign and we'll add a string. This time we'll use the single quotes just to show you that it's possible, and we'll type my name, which is Raymond. So we have new greeting equals greeting plus Raymond, and let's see how that is displayed. Of course, even though it's stored, we'll need to type new greeting to see what is stored within that variable. So we'll type new greeting and hit enter, and we can see it says hello world and Raymond is placed right beside it. So if we want to update the value, we'd say we'd have to add a space before that. There's a cool thing about Python is it allows you to use the underscore to make reference of the last variable that was used. So we'll say new greeting plus a space, and this time we'll add my last name and we'll type Arzu. So now this will be final greeting. And of course we weren't able to change the initial value and add Raymond Arzu, but I'm just doing this to show you that we can now use the underscore to reference the previous variable used, which is the new greeting. So we don't have to type new greeting here. We can simply use an underscore to reference that variable, and we'll hit enter, and now we'll just reference final greeting and hit enter. So we can see that instead of putting my value there, well, the previous variable, which would have been new greeting, instead of using new greeting, we use the underscore, and that is very useful when you're doing calculations. So we've installed Python, and I've shown you how, well, you've seen how it's very easy to get some very cool stuff done with Python. So we've been using string, and we can now say, let's say value a, that would be two values. All right, so let's say value, let's say number one. Let's store the value 5 in there, and let's say number 2, we'll store the value 2. We'll have a third variable that is sum, which will be equals to number 1 plus the plus sign concatenates not only, when it's using string, it concatenates the values. When it's using numbers, it adds them. So the operator, the plus operator, does a lot of stuff depending on what variables you're using. Alright, so we have number 1, and now we have number 2. Yep, that looks about right. So now we have number 1 plus number 2, and to display what we've stored in that variable, we'll type out the word sum again, and we can see that 7. So now that we've seen that 7 is there, let's print. Print is a function, guys. instead of having to use the word or the variable twice, giving it a value, then typing it again, this time we'll use the underscore. We'll use the underscore, which will reference the value sum, which will reference the variable name sum, which has the value 7. We'll say 7 by stating the underscore. So we'll say 7 plus 7. And we'll close the parentheses of the print function and we'll hit enter. Remember, we're using this print function to directly display what value we want instead of storing it then displaying it. So we'll use the print function for that purpose and we'll hit enter. So we can see that our value that we have here now is 14. So this is one of the quickest way to use Python as a calculator, guys. There are a lot more functions that you can do, but before we stray away from today's objective, I just wanted to show you that. So we've installed Python from a fresh system. We'll keep this here just so we can reference the terminal at some point again. And we will move on and we will install Anaconda. And what we're doing, guys, is we are getting very acquainted with the content that are free. Uh, as we can see, there are a number of products that are offered for Anaconda. But because this is a learning tutorial, I don't expect you guys to be spending any money. And in the future, if you do intend to do anything with data analysis or maybe even data science, it would be nice to invest in one of these after you've learned using the free version. And so, yeah, there's a lot to learn. We can see that it's used in a number of applications, and this is the icon we're looking for. So let's download that. It's the 2022 version. Yeah. So we've downloaded the Python for Windows already. You've seen how I've done that. And now we've downloaded Anaconda. As I've mentioned before, guys, my objective is to get as much practice with Python because my end goal is to become very efficient in data analysis as well as artificial intelligence. And a lot of that is possible with Python. So while I'm helping myself, I'm also helping you. So it's like a mutual, it's a symbiotic relationship actually. You're helping me by learning, and I'm helping you by teaching. So as you can see, we're downloading the Anaconda, and it's almost done. So Anaconda is pretty much it's a package. It's a package that offers a number of features, and it's now downloaded. So let's see what we can see here. What we will be using. All right. So I'm installing on Anaconda, and I selected install to pot. Those are stuff that just makes the application gets configured to be used quite frequently. It may be used for a number of other reasons, but I'm not quite sure what that might be. But I do know that it'll work. It will work. So now we're setting up our Anaconda. This may take a bit, and after that, we'll be using the documentation to learn or Python. We'll do the first section and we'll end it there. And some other time we'll proceed to learn all that we can using the Python documentation. This does take a while to do, guys. I'm actually live streaming all of this information, so just bear with me. This will be relatively. This will pretty much reflect what your experience will be while you're trying to get the Anaconda installed as well. I already had these softwares installed on my system, but to make it more relatable to what you may be going through, I decided to do all of it live. So you can see there, it's setting up the base environment. And with Anaconda, you can have multiple environments, and the reason for that is because you may want to run different versions of Python. When we installed Python, we installed the 3.10.7 distribution, and at some point, maybe the package or the project you're working on may require a more modern or a more downgraded version of Python. And instead of having multiple versions of Python, you can easily create a environment where it somewhat replicates the features that are required for the project. Let's go, laptop. We are almost there, but you are not there. Move, move, move. All right, so let's get familiar with the documentation in the meantime. Let's see how this can be done. All right, so here we downloaded Python. Here we can see the documentation, and we'll click on this. Here we have information from beginners to moderate to advanced to general. The version that I intend to go over will be the one from inside the Anaconda, but let's do a brief overview of what could be understood as the beginner's guide. Like when you're just getting started with Python, I believe they don't want to scare you with the programming languages, with a programming language. So they make everything as user friendly as possible, or as readable as possible. Maybe not user friendly. Okay. All right. So let's start here. So when you're getting started with Python, well, it says, let's start from the beginning. New to programming, Python is free and easy to learn if you know where to start. Yeah, that's what we're doing here. This guide will help you to get started quickly. Chinese translation. I'm not sure if enough of you guys may be speaking Chinese, but I don't. So let's keep it pushing. So, getting Python. Next, install Python 3 interpreter on your laptop. Okay, I said we'd be using the documentation, but I believe we've covered that already. And here are a number of sites that they recommend that you may be able to learn Python. Like I'm quite familiar with Codecademy, Datacomp, that as well is supposed to be a good resource. But we will not be using any of those. We will be reading and learning on our own. There's a cheat sheet for Python, and I believe that's just a number of functions that will be coming up a lot. Perhaps like the print function, and perhaps some more functions that are used quite often by programmers or those who participate in. What did I do? All I wanted was a cheat sheet, bro. I am not about to sign up for no. You know what? Abandon ship. Let's go back to the main page. I believe our setup is, yeah, it is. So there's working with Python and Jupyter. There's a breeze in data shell. It's an IDE designed to explore data analysis and machine language. Ooh, data shell does sound interesting, doesn't it? For data analysis and machine learning. Oh man, that's the stuff. Wow. Whew. All right, so here we have the. Thank you for installing Anaconda. Here are some helpful tips and resources to get you started. We recommend you bookmark these links so you can refer to them later. I as well recommend that you do that. Anaconda distribution tutorial and getting started with Anaconda. Perhaps maybe another time we'll be going over those. But these are the two links that were opened. So getting started. Yeah. Why do they want me to sign up? Ah, come on, my G. Can a guy have some fun? Tractors, tractors, tractors. Can a guy have some fun? Whew. You know what? I won't be doing any of these. It's too much, too much, too much. I don't want you guys to know my password. That's the real reason I won't be doing it. So on with the show we go. Back to back to the install. Alright, so we've installed Anaconda. Here we can see Anaconda is here. Uh, we will click on Anaconda. And we are going to be keeping it pushing, guys. Alright, so Anaconda has a lot of stuff to offer, as implied. And I recommend when you're installing it, you do go through the sign up process of getting familiar with the Anaconda application, which this is, and get more acquainted using this because it will be very helpful. So I'll run you through all the applications that are in the browser, at least the ones that I know of. Remember, I'm only doing this to help you guys get acquainted with Python as well as perhaps some more stuff in, uh, I guess, your programming career. Alright, there's a new version of Anaconda available. We strongly recommend that you update. Bro, I just got this. Do you want to update? Do I want to update, guys? Do I? Do I? Do I? Let's be good. Let's say yes. I'll update. I'll be a sport. And we just installed it, and there's already an update to be done. This is the life, guys. We're not well, I'm not sugarcoating what your experience will be. I am not sugarcoating what your experience will be. So let's see how this works out here. Update now. Yeah, this is taking a while. In the meantime, let's see if I can do something with my time. Alright, figured it out. So, I was telling you guys there's a number of apps that pandas, my apologies, not pandas, but Anaconda does offer. Uh, as you could have seen in the navigation bar, we had a list of applications that we could have launched. Alright, thank you for cooperating, Anaconda. Thank you. Alright, so we're rebooting this. I'll go over all the apps that you may be interested in and the ones that you probably won't be using. But it's good for you to have knowledge of them in case your career takes you in another path. Alright, so here, data spell. As you can see, it's not installed, but it says data spell is an IDE, which is an integrated development environment for exploratory data analysis and prototyping machine learning models. So I would want to believe that it would include stuff that allows you to do statistics and maybe some other stuff. Alright, so this is geared towards machine learning. It's an IDE that facilitates machine learning as well as artificial intelligence. Um, this is the command prompt, which we do already have access to. This is the normal command prompt, which would be here. Remember when we just started out, we typed Python in command prompt. It's the same thing. So it's pretty much a shortcut to getting your command prompt launched. Here is the Jupyter lab, which is quite similar to Jupyter. And what this is let's say this is a book. This is perhaps a shelf where you can have multiple notebooks in your Jupyter lab. And let me show you what a Jupyter notebook looks like. It is run on the web browser, so it has a server happening. I'll go to my documents because I already have a folder for Python. So I'll scroll to P where I have Python learn. Here it is. Here are the files that I've downloaded so far. We'll come here and we'll create a Python kernel. And this here is pretty much what you'd be using if you were doing data analysis, but quite similar to what we were doing before. Let me show you how it works. Let's do the same stuff that we did before. Let's say hello. Oh, let's do greeting equals hello world. Here, because it's a graphical interface, it's easier to make changes. Whereas before, we couldn't have greeting, but the same procedures and syntax within the command line does apply here as well. So we can say greeting equals hello world. I just hit one of the quotations, and because this is a more refined experience, it created the second one for me right away. So we'll do that. We'll say hello world. We'll hit shift and enter. That is a shortcut to run a cell, and if we don't hit shift enter, we can easily go to the cell and hit run, and we can see it changed from 1 to 2. And now we'll type greeting and hit tab to auto complete the word greeting. Then we'll hit shift and enter, and here we have the output for the variable. which is greeting. All right. So this is Jupyter, and that's how we do it. We can easily click here and rename the notebook as, let's say, or documentation. It's mm-hmm. Let's say it's our tutorial. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that sounds about right. Tutorial using Python documentation. And when you hit OK, tutorial using Python documentation. If there are any typos, bro, I'm a programmer, not an English major. Most of these things can be refined, or a quick Google search ought to fix whatever typos you may have. But that's something that you should pay attention to, because in most IDEs you won't be given authentication to verify words that are misspelled. So I do recommend that if you are unsure of something, that you research it. Like for example, just googling tutorial. Yeah, but I'm fine with how that is. So let's go back to the Anaconda layout. And the Jupyter Lab is quite similar to the Jupyter Notebook. It only, I would say, it lays out the documentation a bit more refined. It allows you to have multiple notebooks. Here we can have multiple notebooks as well as different files. So we can have a Python file that is used in a particular notebook, and it makes it easier to have a complete file, or a complete project rather, in a more laid out way. So we can see we still have the file, edit, new, run, kernel, tab. It's only here that we have tabs, and we have like a number of other options. But for the purpose of this, we'll be using the Jupyter Notebook instead of the Jupyter Lab. And yeah, let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Alright, so the PowerShell. Alright, so the PowerShell is very interesting, guys. This would be like a command version of the Anaconda itself. So while we aren't able to make any changes from the command line, when you hit on the PowerShell, you are able to run stuff that will, you can install packages here. Like let's say we wanted to, let's see what's the term. Let's type the word activate. And what this does is it accesses base. We were already in base, but now let's type ls, and we can see that there's a number of files in our directory. But what I wanted are there are specific syntax for you to find all the packages you have, but I have forgotten what's that particular layout. But the long and short is you'd be able to install a number of packages from here using pip install, or a particular syntax for Anaconda. Let's go install. Install a package. Alright, so the syntax would be conda install then package name. So we'll copy this. Let's do, let's come back here. We're here. And one of the packages I'd like to install is pandas. And just like that, we'll be asked if we want to keep it in the environment using a yes or a no, and that will be the packages already installed. Alright, so that's great. So that is where you'd go to install packages that are not yet installed on your Anaconda. And here we have the Qt console. Qt is an IDE quite similar to Visual Studio and Spider. Actually, all three of them are IDEs. We have we have two IDEs that I know of. Actually, there are three. There is Spider. It's a lightweight Python IDE. Visual Studio Code. This is renowned. It's by Microsoft. We have Data Lore, Kickstarter, Data Science projects in seconds. Wow. So yeah. So we have three IDs. One, two, three. No, this may just be it is what it says it is. It's a console. So yeah, we'll put that. We have Data Lore. We have IBM Watson, which is for cloud. There's a lot going on here, guys. And we actually have Orange and PyCharm. This is another IDE, and we have R Studio. R is another programming language that is geared towards data science. And as I mentioned before, I am using this because I am someday hoping to become the one of the best Belize has to offer in terms of data analysis, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. All right, so what I didn't show you guys are the tabs that we have over here, which would be the environments and the learning. And so, as I mentioned before, here is where I intend to have our course being centered around. So we'll go over the documentation from here instead of the actual website, which was where we started at here. Alright, so yeah, whetting your appetite. We'll go over the more, I'd say, the more interesting portions of the documentation. If it's something that is being taught, I'll try to pass it on, but let's give credit where due. Uh, let's see if I can summarize this. Perhaps you'd like to write a small custom database. All right, let's not shortcut it. It says if you do much work on computers, eventually you'll find there's some task you'd like to automate. That's life for you. For example, you may wish to perform a search and replace or a search and replace over a large number of text files, perhaps an Excel file, or rename and rearrange a bunch of photo images in a complicated way. Perhaps you'd like to write a small custom database or a specialized GUI application or a simple game. At this point, games may not be an option for us, but we'll get there eventually. So let's see how it goes from here. So moving on, we have if you're a professional software engineer, I am not. I am just a guy trying to teach some other guys how to code. You may work with several programming languages like C, Java libraries. Find the usual write, compile, test, compile cycle too slow. Oh my, this is why reading it sucks. Takes a while. Perhaps you're writing as a test suite for such a library and find writing the testing code a tedious task. Bro, reading this is a tedious task. But I committed, so I'll complete it. Or maybe you've written a program that could be used as an extension language. And I think when he refers to this, he's referring to perhaps a header file or something of a module. And you don't want to design and implement a whole new language for your application. Alright, so it's saying that Python can make your life easier, allegedly. It says Python is the language for you. You could write in a Unix shell. That is, I believe Unix would be. Let's figure out what is a Unix shell. It says it can be done. Let's find out what is a Unix shell. Let's do images. I'm a visual learner. So it would more than likely be in one of these terminals, which we had one open prior. A Unix shell. So you'd be working in command line, and you'd be executing specific scripts. Alright, so it says you can work in Unix shells or Windows batch files or some of these for some of these tasks. But shell scripts are best at moving around files and changing text data. Alright, so it would mean that if you're referencing the shell scripts, you'd have direct control over the operating system. That is what it's sounding. That is what it's implying, or that's what I'm getting from it. So you'd be able to modify the files on the system because you won't be referring to the you will be accessing an existing interface that is already on the system, the shell. And it's saying that how you'd be able to do it well. And it said not well suited for GUI applications or games. Duh. You'd be using the command interface. You should write a a program, whether it be in C, C++, Java. But it can take a lot of development time to get your first draft program. Python is a simpler to use. All right, bro. You know what? I'll spare you of all of this verbiage of saying how well Python is. Let's get to the meat of it. Python is a very high level language. Yes, that's important. It has high level data types built in, such as flexible arrays, dictionary, and dictionaries. That's more better. Because it is more general, because it's more general types, data types, Python is applicable to a much larger problem domain than Arc. I have no idea what that is, or even Perl. I believe it's another programming language. What is Arc? Oh, it's a programming language that was meant for Unix. Learned something there. I know Perl is a a programming language. All right, so it says that Python is able to solve a array of other problems other than well, it's able to cover an array of problems, even more so than Awk or Perl. Yet many things are at least as easy in Python as in those languages. Alright, so it's easier to get stuff done in Python. That's all that's saying. Let's see. Python allows you to split your program into modules that can be reused in other Python programs. Alright, that's straightforward. It comes with a large collection of standard modules that you can use as the basis in your programs as examples to start learning to program in Python. Some of these modules provide the file input output, file system calls, sockets, and even interfaces to graphical user interface toolkits like TK. That's a lot of word, and what I can say is it's modular and it allows you to access the actual backend aspect of the operating system, like the OS, like the IO file, the input output streams, sockets, and even the graphical interface. That's what I'm getting from it. Alright, so it says Python is an interpreted language which can save you considerable time during program development. Alright, so it can save time. It can even be used as a handy calculator, a desk calculator, which is true. We've did some mathematics, simple summing with the Python in the command line in the interface before. Let's show you what that was. This is what we did here. Yep. So we did some very basic operations using the command line interface. And it is true. It's a extensible language because you can build your own data types. Let's summarize other stuff. The rest of this tutorial introduce features of Pythons and systems through examples beginning with simple expressions, statements, data types, uh, through functions and modules, and finally touching upon advanced concepts like exceptions and user-defined classes. So that's the objective of this. I would have say skip all of that and move on to this. But I committed to try to make your Python experience a wholesome one, and I'm doing my best to keep my word on that. Let's move on to the next topic, and let's see what it says here using Python interpreter. It says Python is usually installed in this directory right here. I can say that we did install this version of the Python. And when we did run, we did confirm that is the version of the Python that we are using. Alright, it's saying that your or Python is run from an executable file. All of this stuff, it isn't necessary. Interpret line setting features, history substitution of code completion, and oh my. I believe this is one of the hardest thing to do as a programmer is to find where the documentation is applicable to what you're trying to execute. And if I'm honest, I will not be reading this. No, I will not. Argument passing. We know that we know to the interpreter the script name. Additional arguments thereafter are turned into a list of strings. Interactive mode. Oh, okay. Different modes of Python. When commands are read from TTY, the interpreter is said to be in interactive mode. All right. Yeah, this is making sense. All right. So this is referring to what we'd see when we're in the command line interface. It's saying that when we're delivering, when it's by default, it will have three dots. All right. So if you're not done with statement, I guess it can be continued with three dots. All right. Let's see how this does. Let's say type no. All right. Here it is. Continuation lines are needed when entering multi-line construct. As an example, take a look at the if statement. Alright, so an if statement is pretty much a statement that allows you to select a particular action based on the condition. Alright, so let's see here. Let's copy this. Nah, let's dual screen. We'll do this, and we'll pull up the terminal. Yeah. Alright. It's saying that when we are using the Alright, so the world is flat. Let's see how that goes. And we can say that the world is flat is a variable. And if you can see what the answer is given, it's given the type, it's given the value true. And if it's the word true, that would mean then that that variable type is bool. Let's just type this out. The If you notice they're on the scores that join the statement, and that is known as the snake. Hmm. It's a way that you'd write a variable, but it's known as using the snake layout. The world is flat is true, and so what we'd say is if the world if the I'll just hit tab. Oh no, t underscore then tab. Nope. If the tab. Nope. It won't work here. I'm trying to autofill the variable, but it won't work. Alright, so we say if the world is flat, the syntax says we'll use a colon. Now we hit enter. By default, we have three dots that are shown, and that shows the continuation. So these three dots are continuation lines. That is all this is saying. Alright, so we'll alright, so if the world is flat, we'll print. Be careful. And we'll close it off with the ending statement. Now we'll hit enter and we can see there's a problem. What is the problem? It says we have an indentation error. Do you know what that means? It means that this right here needs to be done over. So in Python, if you do not adhere to the indentation syntax, it will be wrong. And the problem here is that the print is directly below the if. So we'll hit three spaces, one, two, three, and we'll copy this because I will not be typing this again due to my slow typing speed. We'll do that and we'll hit enter. And we'll hit enter once more. And we can see the output is be careful not to fall off, which is the same response we had here. I'll only be doing chapter 1 with you guys right now. There is more, there is a lot more to cover, but for this stream, that will be all for now. So we've covered variable types. We've covered this, and in order to save you guys from a long day's work, well, a lot more work, I'll end it here. Well, let's end off by simply reading the second portion of this documentation, which says the interpreter and its environment. By default, Python source files are treated as encode in UTF-8. If that encoding, in that encoding, characters of most languages in the world can be simultaneously in strings, literal identifiers, and comments. Although the standard library only uses ASCII characters, a convention that any portable code should follow. To display all these characters properly, your editor must recognize that the file is UTF-8 and it must use font that supports all the characters in the file. To declare an encoding other than the default one, a special comment line should be added to the first line of the file. The syntax is as followed. Alright, so I believe this is simply mentioning the encoding that is required, and you'd be using this hash sign as well as the syntax that is here. When encoding, where encoded is one of the valid codecs supported by Python. So we're giving directives using these statements. For example, to declare Windows 1252, encoding is used. Encoding is to be used. The first line of the source code file should be hashtag. You have the asterisk in beside two underscores, and then you have coding. Then CP1 1252, which is here. Depending on what you're trying to accomplish with your encoding, I recommend that you Google it first before you enter it. So we have the encoding directive being used with in conjunction with the encoding that is desired. Keep in mind that we have hash sign. We have this, the coding, then encoding. All of them starts off with a hash sign followed by this coding, then the desired. I think that's it for today, guys. I hope that was something you were able to find useful, I'm going to be stopping the stream. This is Raymond, and you've just learned to code with Ray. Until next time, guys, take care.